Here are the top 5 things that I learned this year in world politics. Coming in number 5 is realism. Realism is the oldest framework of international relations. There are many founding fathers of realist theories, but 3 of high importance are Thucydides, Machiavelli, and Hobbes. The easiest way to understand realism is understanding its key assumptions. The first is that anarchy is the natural state of the international system. Next, that power is the primary currency in international politics. By this, I mean that some states have power, some don't, and all states want more of it. Third, if anarchy is the problem, power is the solution. Fourth, all states act rationally and alike, which is known as a billiard ball metaphor. Fifth, states are the primary actors in politics, and individuals are less important in the grand scheme of things. Realism is often seen as harsh because of the dog-eats-dog mentality that is so prevalent in the theory. The key to realism is that everything only matters in relation to power. Next, at number 4, is power balance. Another immensely important topic in politics is the balance of power globally and why it matters. The first type of balance of power is a simple balance of power. This is when there are one or more states that have generally equal power. This would mean that they have equal capabilities and strength balanced against one another. Another type is a unipolar system. This is when there is a clear superpower and a hegemon-stabilized system. The next system is a bipolar system, which is when there are 2 clear superpowers, such as the USA and the USSR in the 1950s. Lastly, there is a multipolar system, which is when there are numerous powerful, influential states. The balance of power is immensely important in the stability of the world, and a shift in power is rare but can be dangerous and threaten war. Coming in at number 3 is my favorite theory of international politics, which is constructivism. In contrast to realism, constructivism is a relatively young theory. The theory was originally created by Nicholas Onuf and Alexander Wendt. Constructivism is much less concrete than its counterparts. It is based off the idea that ideas are the main actor. Alexander Wendt is quoted famously saying, "Anarchy is what the states make of it." Power for constructivists, of course, matters. However, it doesn't explain everything like it does to realists. Constructivists value power based on what states do with it, which is based on ideas, beliefs, and identities. Coming in at number 2 is different types of war. So the next important topic is the categorization of different types of war. There are many different vectors that can categorize a war. The first is total war versus limited war. Total war aims to conquer and occupy the opponent's territory or take control of its government. The severity of force is high as belligerents will use all necessary resources. On the flip side, limited war is meant to punish opponents in order to force them to stop a certain behavior. The resources for limited war are typically modest, and military deployment is less likely and less severe. The next factor to consider when categorizing war is if it is conventional or unconventional. Conventional war is when combatants are typically in uniform and strictly using conventional and legal weapons, which means they're not using nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. It is also important that all combat is between recognized combatants and legitimate targets of war. Unconventional war is characterized as asymmetric war, which is usually when combatants are backed into a corner and they don't have the money to play by legal rules of war. The combatants typically are willing to fully ignore the conventions of war and do whatever it takes to end up on top. And then finally, coming in at number 1 is human rights and humanitarian intervention. Human rights are rights inherent to human beings regardless of nationality, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. Human rights were established as norms, but they were also written into international law many times. However, most countries breach human rights many times. The reason understanding human rights is so important is because humanitarian intervention's goal is to protect the breach of these human rights. Humanitarian intervention can be defined as the transboundary use of military force for the purpose of protecting people whose human rights are being taken away. There are many contradicting opinions on utilizing humanitarian intervention. Statism is the theory that humanitarian intervention should be rarely used and sovereignty of states should be protective. So essentially, statism promotes the idea of sovereignty and leaving internal affairs up to the given state rather than creating widespread conflict. The opposing theory is cosmopolitanism, which claims that participants of the existing global order have a responsibility in the collective human rights brought about by the order. So these are my top 5 things learned in world politics.